A very good morning to you and welcome to the show. This is, of course, the Chat Trap on Relax Radio. I am Jamie and I'm going to be with you on this beautiful Thursday, talking to you about so many interesting things from entertainment gossip to real world problems that you absolutely need to know. So make sure that you keep it tuned right here on Relax Radio and go ahead and share your thoughts and opinions with me, okay? How you can do that is by calling me on 07852 or by leaving a comment down below or joining in the live chat. Now since this is happening live, you have the opportunity to go ahead and drop a comment down below and I can talk to you about it. I can discuss it with everybody that's listening in as well. So go ahead, share your thoughts and opinions with me either by calling me or by dropping me a message on the live chat down below if you're listening to us on our social media platforms. With that being said, I also want to remind you really quick before we get on into some very interesting and some conversation that you absolutely need to hear. Before we get on into that conversation, I just want to remind you that you can download our app because it's available absolutely free of charge on iOS and Android, which means the only thing that you need to do is head on over to your Play Store or App Store and download our app so that you can take us with you wherever it is that you go. Um, with that being said, let's get on into the conversation because this is definitely a topic that I've been extremely passionate about. It's something that all of us need to be passionate about, and that's with regards to the Afghanistan crisis, okay? And I know a lot of people are like, oh, wait, but it doesn't affect us. Why are we so worried about Afghanistan? Things are going to sort themselves out. These are actually things that people are saying, right? But one thing that I've come to realize, or one thing that I've learned is, if one of us are hurting, all of us are hurting. Which means that if one of us in our human community are in pain and they're not getting their basic human rights, we as a human community, we as an international global community fail as a whole, okay? So I think it's so important that we kind of, talk about Afghanistan and be involved in everything that's happening, which is kind of what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to give you the most latest information, keep you updated with all of the things that's happening in Afghanistan right now. Now, with that being said, I came across the most horrifying thing ever, and that's apparently that the women of Afghanistan can't possibly go to work anymore. So, this is definitely something that we're going to be talking about in the next couple of minutes. So, make sure that you chime in, make sure that you let me know what you are thinking, your thoughts, your opinions. Call me up, let me know because I would definitely love to hear from you. Now, let's get on into the conversation. Apparently, the Taliban are actually telling working women to stay at home. Uh, what that to me in itself is the most basic violation of your human rights. Nobody can tell you, despite your gender, despite your race, despite how old you are, nobody can tell you what to do and what not to do. But that's exactly what's happening in Afghanistan because the Taliban are actually telling working women to stay at home, okay? So apparently working women in Afghanistan must stay at home until a proper system is in place to ensure their safety. So it's all done in the pretense of safety, but the Taliban are actually telling women to stay at home because it's not safe for them out there. But what's ironic to me is the reason it's not safe for the women out there is because of the Taliban themselves, right? And apparently, the spokesman of the Taliban, I hope I'm saying his name right, Zabiullah Mujahid, said that it's a very temporary procedure. But yeah, they need the working women rather, to stay home as opposed to go to work. Now, the Taliban enforced a really strict version of Islamic law back 20 years back in before 2001 actually, and they of course retook full control of the country 9 days ago, and we've had this conversation. But we're now talking about the women, and I also told you how when a lot of people were concerned about the rights of women, when a lot of people were concerned about the freedoms of girls and women, the Taliban actually spoke. And they informed everybody that the rights will be catered to and that women and girls will be looked at with respect. But looking at the situation that's happening today, right now in Afghanistan, we can clarify that that's not the situation. Women are not allowed to go to work under the pretense of safety. So that in itself is a violation of the most basic human rights right there. Now, of course, The UN has highlighted, I spoke to you about this yesterday, but the UN has highlighted credible reports of abuse by the Taliban, notably the restrictions on women. And the UN Human Rights Commissioner said, I think, back on Tuesday, said that the women's rights were a fundamental red line. Okay, now in the news in Kabul on Tuesday, the Taliban spokesman also addressed the US led evacuation from the capital of Kabul and said that Afghans should not try to go to the airport, said that there's chaotic situations there and they should, stop going to the airport. And the US also said, at least the Taliban told the US that they should stop encouraging Afghans to leave Afghanistan because Afghanistan needs their talents. Oh my goodness. The only reason people are fleeing Afghanistan is because they are so afraid of their own rights, of their own freedoms, of their own lives. And the Taliban are telling the US to stop encouraging Afghans to leave Afghanistan because they need Afghan talent. I find it so ironic. I find it so hypocritical, actually, and it's just honestly so sad as to what's happening in Afghanistan. I do have a lot more that I want to talk to you about. We are going to be talking about how the EU and basically the world community in general, we can't just turn a blind eye. We can't just be talking about this. We need to take some action. And let's talk about how the EU definitely needs to do something about what is happening in Afghanistan, about all the rights and the fundamental freedoms that are being snatched away from women and girls. It's definitely something that we need to do about here in the EU and around the world as well. So we'll get to that in actually just a second. Right now, though, we're going to be heading off on to a little break. Make sure that you keep it tuned right here on Relax Radio. Very good morning to you. Welcome back to the show. A very good day to you. How are you feeling? How is your day going so far? I would absolutely love to know. Go ahead and call me up on 07852 473 or if you're listening to us on our social media platforms, there's an opportunity or there's an option for you to leave a comment down below. And since this is happening live, I can reply and react and talk to you and have a conversation with you. So go ahead and let me know what you're thinking by leaving a comment down below. Make sure that you hit the thumbs up button as well so that I know that you're listening, that you like what we're talking about and that you like what we're discussing. Go ahead and let me know. If you don't like what we're talking about, that's okay as well. Go ahead and let me know by leaving a comment down below, and make sure that you hit the thumbs up button as well. With that being said, let's get back into the conversation. We've been talking about Afghanistan, and I was telling you how, particularly in Afghanistan, how the women, basically women and girls, we have proof that the women and girls are barely hanging in there, and that they barely have the most basic freedoms, because the Taliban actually, just today, the Taliban told working women to stay at home. Okay, and the reason that the Taliban are telling working women to stay at home is because there is no proper safety. No safety for working women, which to me is very confusing. But yeah, that's the pretense that they're saying, to keep the working women at home, basically. But apart from that, I've been talking to you about, how a lot of there has been a lot of harassment that has been reported in by Afghan women, rather, even though the Taliban promised security. Okay, female school teachers and other employed women in 2 provinces of Afghanistan are reporting harassment by Taliban fighters, even though the Taliban spokesman um, on Tuesday, yeah, that's like 2 days ago. And the Taliban spokesman on Tuesday promised that the group is forming a policy to keep women secure. Now, yesterday I spoke to you about this policy, and I told you that when I heard that speech, that kind of gave me a little bit hope. I was just like, oh my goodness, finally, it's not going to go back to the Taliban rule 20 years back. Hopefully, the women will still be able to get education. The women will get at least the most basic human rights, because according to the Taliban spokesman, that's something that he promised. But fast forward 2 days, we see that that's not the case, because Afghan women are already reporting harassment by the Taliban leaders and fighters. Okay, I think specifically it's women in a province called Takar, and that's in the country's northeast, if I'm not mistaken, and Kabul province. Also, women in Kabul province tell the global community that there are so many new restrictions concerning how they dress, how they work, which means women can't even, keep aside dressing, they can't even decide which work they want to do. And apparently, the Taliban, and I quote a female teacher in Dhaka, says that Taliban are very aggressive with women here. They want women to wear the chadari, which is a chadari basically is a full body covering that literally has like a little mesh for the women to see through. And she says that that's definitely not something that she would wear as a school teacher, but she's being forced to wear that just because of the Taliban rule, which is so scary to me. And that just goes to show that things are going back to what they were 20 years back. There is no change to the Taliban rule, and that's definitely something that we need to be worried about. Okay, with that being said, okay, let's talk about the safety of how does this involve us as the global community, as the global north, at least? How does it involve the developed countries? Because I truly believe that the safety of Afghan women and girls have to be a EU priority. It has to be a priority of the rest of the world as well. Okay, reacting to the rapid developments on the ground in Afghanistan, I think it's so important to kind of talk or speak and see what can be done with regards to women and gender equality in Afghanistan. I actually just listened to the Evelyn Regner. She is the chair of the European Parliament Committee on Women's Rights and Gender Equality, and she said that the Taliban have seized control of Kabul, and there's a new reign of terror, and it means systematic and brutal oppression of the Taliban, at least the Afghan women and girls. Of course, this is a humanitarian crisis. We cannot be turning a blind eye to this. Like I always say, if one of us in our community is suffering and they can't get access to education and work and basic human rights such as that, well, then all of us are suffering. There's no, the quote that says, we are only as strong as our weakest link. And right now, people of our community, it doesn't matter where you're living, it doesn't matter what gender, what race you belong to, you need to understand that people that look like you and me, people that have feelings like you and me, people of our same human community are suffering in Afghanistan without the access to the most basic human rights or whatnot. So that is definitely something that we need to keep in mind. And if you could probably keep them in your prayers. Hope that our leaders are going to take some action. Let us as a community of people call for action about us, that something be done with regards to the whole Taliban situation, the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan. With that being said, we are going to be heading off into a little break. When I come back, though, I do have a lot more interesting things to talk about, so make sure that you keep it tuned right here on Relaks Radio.
We've seen it, right? If an owner of a large public traded company does something wrong, irrelevant of what that company does or how valuable that company is, the stock generally falls into a pool of nothing, right? Because in a public company where the stock is traded openly on the stock exchange, the value of that stock is driven by supply and demand, it's driven by emotion, it's driven by news, it's driven by quite a lot of variables over and above the actual accounting or total net worth of that company. I mean, we've seen it, right? If an owner of a large public traded company does something wrong, irrelevant of what that company does or how valuable that company is, the stock generally falls into a pool of nothing, right? And the company may still have value, it may still be doing quite a good things. The valuations that you place on an asset are always behind you. It's always in hindsight. It's never in front of you. And that's one of the challenges, right? Because you're always valuing what happened yesterday. And